Hi, this is Li Wei. I'm here to show you the Malwarebytes application for Phantom Splunk. Phantom is a security automation and orchestration tool. In other words, it is used to create workflows and runbook when security events are received. The application or the platform comes with a whole set of applications, lots of applications that you can configure in order for actions to be created. So events come in, we can actually create playbooks or workflows whereby different actions within the applications can perform automated tasks on our behalf. So first of all, I'm going to show you importing the Malwarebytes application. It is available on the Malwarebytes support site. So we're going to download the module in a zip file, in a tar file. So you can see it's being downloaded. In order to import or install the Malwarebytes application, I'm going to click on Install App, choose the module that we just downloaded, and click Install. So and there it is, and that is how it is done to install the application. The only thing that's really required to make use of the application is to configure it. Before I go there, I just want to show a quick screen of the documentation. So the documentation shows the different actions available from the Malwarebytes application. So we're allowed to get a list of all the endpoints, quarantine the endpoints, scan the endpoints, and so on and so forth. The configuration step required is basically to specify the connectivity or log in into Malwarebytes cloud. So that's what we're going to do next. I'm going to say configure next, and the tab that says asset setting allows us to put in the username password. The reason why it's been filled in already is because I had previously configured it before and it remembers that. So testing connectivity allows us to test and make sure that the credentials are correct. So now the asset, in this case the Malwarebytes cloud application, is considered installed. What we're going to do is just kind of walk through creating some events, as would be events coming into the Phantom platform, and then creating a playbook to make use of the Malwarebytes application. If I go over to the playbooks, there are many playbooks available. I actually have turned off almost all of mine. So looking at the filtering on the status that says active, notice that there's literally no active playbooks at the moment to receive and process events. So I'm going to create an event. I'm sorry, a playbook. The playbook that I have in mind is simple. I'm going to simulate later create two events being sent into the Phantom platform. One event is going to have medium severity, and the second event high severity, both of them coming from some kind of SIM and indicating some endpoint, one medium and one high severity. So the thinking of the workflow would be, when the event comes in, this playbook will first determine if this is a low priority or high priority. If it is medium priority, I'm just going to go do a scan on the endpoint. Let's just make sure that we scan and remediate any problems or threats that might exist. On the other hand, if we receive a high severity event, we're just going to quarantine the endpoint and then send an email to some interested or responsible parties. So that's what we're going to do. So the first thing is to create an action, but in this case, let's start with a decision. Remember, the thinking is that if the event comes in, I'm going to ask the event for the severity. Typical container events has got a bunch of different types of standard attributes that hopefully is available. So in this case, I'm going to look into one that says severity, and if it's equals to something like medium, so this is a decision that we're going to make. We're going to do something. So now we have a medium, and I'm going to say if it's a medium severity, I'm going to take an action. Any application that I have configured becomes available to me, including Malwarebytes. And let's do a scan endpoint. So when I scan an endpoint, the action in this case requires a parameter that says what is the hostname. I'm going to look into the artifact, the event, and pull out the source hostname from it and pass it into this action called scan endpoint. So if you want me to scan the endpoint, please pass the hostname to me so that I can do the scan on your behalf. And that's the end of the playbook. So we have got a kind of a path working correctly, but if you remember, our intent is to create another one that says, on the other hand, if the event comes in with a severity of high, we want to do something different. In this case, let's take a different action, again using Malwarebytes, to quarantine the device because of high severity. So again, I'm going to pick the input that says hostname, and then we will do the quarantine device. Now, let's actually add another step. Perhaps, maybe we can send an email as well. So here's a send email action, kind of showcasing that the action themselves do not have to. That's the whole point of the Phantom platform, is to make use of any available actions. So typically what I would be doing would be filling in all these different fields so that the emails can be sent to me. I'm just going to kind of skip the configuration for now. So we have a pretty complete playbook at the moment. And the last thing that I think I'm going to do is to say that let's turn this on, make it active. In other words, if something comes in, let's go ahead and process this particular or execute this particular playbook. So I'm going to save and go back. I think the playbook needs a name. How about Malwarebytes sample 1? Save it. So the playbook is all good. If I go back to the playbook and do a refresh, I expect to see this sample 1 playbook being active. Remember, I filtered on the active playbooks. And of course, at the moment, there are 0 success or failure because no events have been received or being processed. Here's the event that I've created. And basically, I have 2 machines in my Malwarebytes console. One machine is called Firmino. The other one is Keita. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to send an event indicating that Firmino has a medium severity and then Keita has a high severity in order to see any potential actions being taken. If actions are being taken through the Malwarebytes application, then I would expect to see different tasks being created on the screen. Right now, notice that my last tasks was on November the 14th, which was actually yesterday. So the way that I'm generating event is that I've created some simple Phantom, Python script. So it might look something like this, Python 2.7. I'm going to send a Firmino event that is of medium severity. So by sending this, I expect to see an event coming into Phantom. But first of all, before I do that, I'm going to look into the screen that says different events coming in. Notice that there are lots of events in here. In order to see the incoming events in a little bit easier fashion, Let me just filter on anything that is new and open, and at the moment I have none. So I'm going to send the event. Looks like an event's been created, and at the back, true indeed, a medium severity event called Firmino event has been generated. I click on it, and I notice that the event has actually executed because it sends the playbook was executed, and Firmino is being asked to do the scanning. If I go back to the Malwarebytes console and do a refresh, let's just make sure. And indeed, this Firmino endpoint through the API has been asked to do a threat scan. So that works pretty nicely. Let's do a different event, and this time let's send an event that says high severity, and that event's name is called CADA, and this particular script sends a high severity event, and I'm going to execute in a moment. Now, this is the machine that I have that is running, that's called CADA. And if you remember, what we want to do is to quarantine the device. In the Malwarebytes vernacular, we call that an isolation. So if everything works correctly, I would expect this particular endpoint called CADA to be quarantined. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. First of all, let's execute the sending the event. Presumably, if the playbook is in action, so we can go back and take a look. So here is the CADA event that we just sent of high severity. I click on it, and it tells me that it is actually doing a quarantine device, and it appears to be successful. I go back to the Malwarebytes console and do a refresh, hoping and expecting to see a new task being created called isolating endpoint. Indeed, that's done. And then we go back to the console and notice that this time CADA as an endpoint has been isolated or quarantined by the playbook through the Malwarebytes application. That's all that I'm going to show. Thank you for watching.